How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to Lorbeck. I'm going to be your host, Sam Brabham, and on this week's Friday drive, we've got a 2015 Lamborghini Huracan. We're going to talk a little bit about the exterior of the car now. Lamborghini have been synonymous with this very sleek, stylish design throughout the years. You think of the old Diablos, Countages, and now with the Huracan. You know it's a Lamborghini as soon as you see it and as soon as you hear it as well. Looking at the front end, it always looks so mean. You've got these like angular headlights. Just all these little accents on the side and sort of the honeycomb finish there is very, very Lamborghini. We'll make our way over to the side now. You've got the twin post rims here, the yellow calipers, which go really well with the yellow accents of the car. I always like the fact that they've got big wing mirrors as well. Sometimes these sports cars are really hard to see out of, but actually these here, they're stylish in the same way as the front end is, but also you can actually see quite well out of them, which remains to be seen from other manufacturers, to be honest with you. Walking towards the back of the car here, the top of it, you've got all the aerodynamics all flowing towards the back, and we'll get to the engine bay in a minute, but as we come around to the rear end, you can see all through here, it's just straight lines and sharp angles the whole way through the car, and that's the same from the front all the way to the back and even in the interior, and it's very, very Lamborghini, and that's what I love about it. And now as we come over to the top here, this is my favorite bit. It's something that Lamborghini do really well. You can see that big V10 in the back there. I love being able to see the engine at work. Actually, you know what? I've got a better idea. Let's open it up and have a proper look. Now we've got this opened up here. One, it's hot because of the engine. Also, it's quite sunny today, but I love the fact that you've got all this carbon interior all the way down to the end there, the far end. One for rigidity for the actual suspension, as well as the bars all in here. That's for the actual chassis of the car to be as stable as possible, but also really good on a circuit, but also super, super lightweight. Even if you can feel it, it just gives that extra element to the car. And you see the big V10 there. It sounds incredible. And as we're driving to this location, you just start plucking gears and down changing, and you just feel that pop and crackle and that punch through the gear change that we all love about these types of cars. Now into the interior of the car. Now sitting in the cabin, I feel a little bit like I did in the R8, that low seating position. I feel like I'm almost in the race car, and I've been very lucky enough to have driven the Lamborghini Super Trofeo car earlier this year in Adelaide at the Ben Motorsport Park, and you can see how the feeling I get driving it translates to the race car, and that's exactly what manufacturers are looking for. Yes, I'm sitting on a different side, where in the race car I'm on the left, and obviously certain things are different, but the principles of the way the car feels and drives and the sound and the feeling are all very similar. And actually the way I'm sat in the car particularly is very much like the race car. Great customizability with the wheel. I can make sure, I like having the wheel really close. It's the best way to be, so you're nice and tight with your hands, and I can feel like I have that feeling in the car. Even with the gear changes here, big paddles, you can see all the way through there. So even as I'm turning, if I have to, I can just change gear, which is really, really beneficial, particularly when we're on the road. If we do enjoy driving with the paddles, which is always fun, particularly on the down changes, you can hear the car as and when you want to. It's important to have that even if you're having to turn a little bit. Into all the buttons now, I quite like the array of buttons that we've got. Some of the little touches, like the little start-stop indicator there and the reverse to get it into that situation now, I really, really like it. It's just those little things that make it very, very Lamborghini. The yellow stitching on this front here, and then that Lamborghini signification just on that left-hand side there. Now we're going to get into the driving element of this amazing, amazing car. That V10 engine is going to produce about 602 brake horsepower, which is way more than you need for the road. And I've been very lucky enough to have driven not just the race car, but a lot of the Huracans on the circuit as well. And the one thing I find really impressive with them is, in nature, they look like they're going to be a real handful. And I guess there's that stereotype about them that maybe that would be the case, because they've got so much power, they're rear-engined as well. But actually, on the circuit, they are seriously, seriously impressive. With that power, the great thing about these cars is you get the best of both worlds. And we've got our drive modes down here, which we're going to roll through in a second, that help us either sit in a very comfort style mode, which is our Strada mode, which is what we're in now, and then cycle through to Sport, which obviously gives you a little bit more performance. The ESC then goes to Sport as well. That limited amount of slip that the car will give you changes, and then finally into Corsa, which is essentially our race mode in a lot of other vehicles. And that takes the ESC to Corsa, which again gives you a little bit more slip. So when I'm on circuit, I can use these toggles for the drivers that I'm with. Now, some of them might just sit in Strada because they're amateurs, they're new to it. But the more experienced guys, we can sit in Corsa because one, we get the most amount of power at the tip of our fingers and the tip of our feet. But also, as we're driving, there's that little bit of slip that you do need so the car gives you all of the power that you want at the same time. As we're driving in our Strada mode, we've got that ultimate sense of comfort. And actually, for a sports car and a supercar, driving in that Strada comfort mode, if you will, is very comfortable. The gears change, and I'm in manual mode at the moment just because I enjoy it, and I think a lot of people who drive these cars do. You want to hear that pop and the crackle and feel that crisp down change as you do it. As we cycle through to Sport, this is just going to give me a little bit more acceleration, a bit more power, and the rigidity of the suspension then changes. And I can feel it on the bumps here a little bit more now. Whereas then we go into Corsa, this is almost your track mode. For me personally, as much as, yeah, it's a little bit bumpy, you can feel, again, that suspension taking another step in that stiffness that it has. I can feel every bump now, and I'm sure Mr. Digby with the camera is probably struggling a little bit more as we speak, but if I was to weave the car, that steering gets a little bit heavier, a little bit more direct as well, and that's a really enjoyable feeling, particularly for a car like this. But then as we're going to come up to a set of speed bumps here, and we're just going to go cruise along at the speed limit, but as I change gears, I can feel that real punch, not just in, listen to that noise as well, no scrapage here either. And we do have a lift kit as well, so if I want to, I can change the lift kit sort of just to make life a little bit easier for us as well, and then we can change it back again for that feeling, and also the look of the car as well. These cars look amazing when that front's really low, whereas when you have that lift kit on, and even as I'm driving up to it, I can just press the button. I know I'm coming up to some speed bumps. I'll always go at a little bit of an angle, just if I can, just to make life a little bit easier for the car, and then we're off again. One thing I'm a huge fan of is the usability of the car as well. We've got indicators just here. I actually just flick them left and right. There's a little toggle there. And then the actual dash itself isn't overcomplicated. It's simple. And I think that's what these cars need. You don't want something that's overly complex. I mean, you don't buy a car like this because of the dash. You buy it for the vehicle, the driving experience. And that's something I really like about it. You've got all the info here. You can go to your menu. We've got lots of different options. And I like the fact that everything's actually in front of me. I'm not having to avert my eyes over to that left-hand side, which also makes this cluster here a lot more cleaner. You've got that styling really makes a big difference with just this dash usable for the driver. Something I think is important to mention with this is that if you look at the generations of Lamborghinis, the last 6-7 years since the Huracan came out, really, they've taken a massive step forwards in their usability, the comfort, the styling, the interior quality as well. Whereas I felt like, for me personally, and again, this is just a personal choice here, I always felt like maybe the Aventador particularly was a little bit clunky, a little bit, it just didn't have everything that I wanted from it. Whereas now, driving this, and even having driven some of the newer models as well, it has that comfortability, it has that style, it has all those elements that make it a way better car on the road. Because there was never any doubt how good they were on circuit, but that comfortability factor, I think, has really stepped up the quality of the materials used and the buttons, how good they are, and you know, the fact that they've been bought out by VAG Group. You know, you look at the similarities between the Audis and the VWs, and as they transition throughout all the different elements, and Bentley as well, of course, it's that they do luxury really well, and I feel like the newer generation of these cars really have that in abundance, and I think it's a really important factor to mention because I think previously that may not have been the case, whereas now I think it certainly is. that's going to wrap up this episode of our Friday drive here at Lorbeck. I've had so much fun with this car, and it takes me back a little bit to that feeling I had when I was driving the racing car version earlier this year. They're such a brilliant thing, and I think Lamborghini over the years have had a bit of a stigma about them that actually I don't think is true anymore. It's super comfortable, it's great fun, they sound incredible with that V10 engine, and they're so much fun to drive. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram, and let us know which cars you'd like for us to feature here at Lorbeck on our Friday drives.